could not make the trip all the way up here to Toledo. So welcome, Stephanie, and I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really sad I'm not there in person. I was planning on coming in person, and then summer school. They needed people to work summer school. So then I emailed Chris and I was like, can you please let me present virtually? Like, I want to share some really good resources. If you don't know me, I'm an oversharer. So I like to share a bunch of resources. So you could feel overwhelmed. And I just want to let you know, find one resource, focus on that resource. I'm also recording this session. I'm going to put it in a link that you'll get after the conference today. So I will upload that video once it is finished processing. It should take hopefully less than an hour to get into that document. But today we're going to be talking about controlling the chaos hacks. And where this kind of starts is this past school year has been really difficult. I'm an instructional technology coach, and this past school year I worked with teachers that were in kindergarten all the way to 6th grade. And we saw a lot of different behaviors happening. After COVID, we saw a lot of struggle with executive functioning skills. A lot of skills were kind of lacking. My teachers were exhausted. And so with that, I've kind of gathered some of the hacks that we have created and tried throughout this school year to make it better for teachers and students, especially coming back from that COVID year. And just some of these things that we learned, we saw a lot of growth in our students because we did focus in on executive functioning. So down here at the bottom is the link to the slides. I will show it again at the end, but if you want to, feel free to take a screenshot or go ahead and hop onto the slide deck if you want to. So here is a Google group. Some of the resources are not open to the public, so you might have to join this Google group because in Gold, we do a lot of collaboration. So to protect the rights of the collaborators, we share it with a Google group so we know who is kind of in the slide deck, who to give credit to. And if something gets deleted, we can have a conversation with that person to protect the person that created that original resource's rights. So I encourage you to join the Google group if you do want access to any of the materials in this presentation. They're all completely free, but just want to throw that out there that you might have to join the Google group in order to get access. It might say like, you don't have access. So if that happens, this is the link that you will need first. Okay, so here are the categories we're going to cover today. And again, it's going to be a lot of different resources. If you have questions, feel free to ask at the end. The first thing is SOPs. Then we're going to focus on executive functioning. The third thing is relationship building. The fourth is transitions. And then the 5 is reflection. So again, coming back from COVID, we had a lot of skill gaps. We had a lot of issues with executive functioning. And so again, these resources are going to be there to help you in those areas. So SOPs, what that means is standard operating procedures. So with that, a lot of our teachers just assumed that students would kind of know how to behave. And so when it came to SOPs, we started to create a pack for teachers. So this is a pretty boatload resource. And if you click this link, you can kind of see here, group work and strategies to help you when group work gets hard. Maybe you're struggling with seating charts. There's another resource to help you with seating charts. So what we did with teachers is we kind of sat with them and we just brain dumped. Okay, when is a time in your day very, very difficult? And so they would say the start of class. So right here with the start of class, there are resources to help teachers think about, how do I want my students to enter in the room? Where do I want them to put their book bags, lunches, homework? And then what should they do when they get settled? And after you ask yourself those questions, there's templates for agendas to help you create. There's work for buzzwork. That's kind of like an agenda where students would get started. Math reps, it's an edu protocol for students to practice their math and its spiral review every single day. Or maybe just lesson starters. So again, we started to gather all of our different resources and create this hub of just, okay, when am I struggling and what can I do to help ease some of that struggle? So some of it might have been like classroom jobs. And with classroom jobs, the teacher could have looked here, give her students a classroom job, and students would apply for that job, and then they would make some type of salary for the classroom economy. Maybe they needed a teacher check-in. I know the morning's crazy, so some teachers set up like a sign-up sheet where they would meet with their students. Some teachers did like a waiting room with paper clips. Some teachers use Classroom Q, which is a website. Other teachers with the SEL check-ins, they did some check-ins that are like in this folder. Let's see if it will load. And some of them were like on a scale. Some of them were just fun questions to get to know you. And it started to make the start of the class a lot smoother. So again, with this resource, what I just suggest to you is think about what is the most hardest time in your classroom. Is it when students might get stuck on a problem? Is it when they end class? Is there just so much transition there that you're like, okay, I need to think back how to kind of help those students? Maybe it is directions for a task. Okay, so we kind of created this resource bank with all of these different resources just to give teachers some resources to help start their class. The next thing is this SOP rubric, so standard operating procedure rubric. What students do is after you introduce the new procedure, you have a rubric here and they self-grade themselves. Am I a 4? Am I doing really good on this SOP? And the reason it's kind of blank is because there's so many SOPs on this pack that if I was focusing on start of class, I might put 4, you came in, you put your book bag away, you got started on the agenda, you did this. 3, maybe you just put your book bag away. 2, you did it with a lot of talking, and 1. And so students would self-grade themselves, and then I'm able to conference with my students to see what they thought they did, and we can kind of agree or disagree. And then we can talk about how we might support others or how we might support this goal moving forward. So just allowed us to build that consistency within some of our teachers that were kind of missing that. And then just SOP review games. So having some type of review games for our students. So there were a ton of different games here, but going over those procedures to help build that consistency and build that routine. So a couple of our teachers did a classroom scavenger hunt. And down here in the speaker notes is kind of an example where the students had to identify 2 procedures for their classroom library. They then had to show how to turn in work. They then had to show how to do the bathroom procedure and all of these kind of things that you do in August, but in a fun way where they had to complete it in a scavenger hunt with a group of other students. So it was just kind of fun for the students to explore some of the new procedures that the teachers were adding into the scavenger hunt. And then again, having classroom jobs allows students to feel ownership and responsibility in the classroom. So maybe, for example, the student wanted to be the fitness coach. So with the fitness coach, the student would lead maybe a just dance or some type of physical activity before the day started. The student would lead it, and then they would kind of monitor it throughout the week. And then they could change jobs if they wanted to. But we realized that students really enjoyed having a job and having a responsibility and helping out in the classroom. The next part is executive functioning. So again, that was standard operating procedures, creating all those procedures for your classroom and just making it run a lot smoother and trying to control some of that chaos. So now when it comes to executive functioning, what we created is, again, kind of like that SOP bank is an executive functioning bank. And with that, there are 12 different executive functioning skills. And so what the students do is they take a pretest. However, I want you to kind of think back on this school year. And think about one student in your class. Were they lazy? Maybe you had a student that was stubborn or messy or disruptive or unmotivated or forgetful. Okay, think about that one student. So for me, it was this one student, and he's very stubborn. Actually, it's my son. I have a 2-year-old son, and my son is very, very stubborn. Okay, so now that I've thought about that for my student, I am then going to go in here on the bottom. And what happens is those skills that we sometimes say in the lunchroom with other teachers, or when we're talking or complaining or venting about a student, that student's so lazy, that student's so messy, that typically aligns with an executive functioning skill. And so right here are all of the executive functioning skills. And I said my son, he was very stubborn. Well, I can see he needs to have goals and he needs some flexibility. So those are the 2 executive functioning skills missing. If you would have said lazy, maybe they need to focus on attention and goal-directed persistence. Maybe forgetful. Well, they need to work on their working memory and that metacognition. Okay, so these are skills that we can teach our students. And I actually had a teacher this year that focused on executive functioning in her classroom, and her students' iReady scores from the first diagnostic to the middle diagnostic went way up. All because she was able to focus on them. And then we did it again from the middle to the end of the year. And from the middle to the end of the year, we actually did this pre-assessment with students. And there's a couple different pre-assessments that you can use, because based on your grade level of your students will depend on how they do it. If it's kind of a 3rd grader, your staff might want to do it, or the parents might want to do it. But if your students are maybe 4th grade and up, they can probably do the assessment by themselves. I even encourage you to do the assessment if you're wondering where you rank in your executive functioning skills. And so the students did this pre-assessment, and we realized that because the teacher was really focused on goal-directed, they did a lot of data chats. The students became owners of their data. They were so excited to take a pre-test and then take a post-test to see how much they improved. I don't know many kids that were so excited about it, but for this group, because this teacher really focused on that goal-directed piece for executive functioning. So the kids would do fast and curious activities. This is an edu protocol where the students would log into GimKit every afternoon at 3 o'clock, and they would do it first on Monday. And on Monday, they've never seen the content. The teacher did not pre-teach it, nothing. They just had to use prior knowledge and kind of learn as they go. And there was different vocabulary activities on this GimKit. The students on Monday scored about 30%. By Friday, their scores went up to about 90 to 95%. And the students got to see their score improve throughout the week. So on Monday, they got that 30%. Tuesday, they went up to maybe 35. On Wednesday, they got maybe a 60. And then maybe on Wednesday, they did a prayer model, or they took the words that they missed and they practiced those words. On Thursday, they were up at 80%. And on Friday, the kids got to see how much they improved. So again, from Monday all the way to Friday, these kids are seeing their growth. They're invested into their learning when they get to see that growth. And that's just a simple way that this teacher did it every day at 3 o'clock until dismissal. And so with that, the students on the pre-test for the executive functioning scored pretty high in that area. So what we did is we looked at their data and we resorted it to kind of, okay, let's focus on this next, then this, based on what the teacher's goals were for blended learning. And we also learned that a lot of the executive functioning skills here you need in a blended learning classroom. You need to have organization. You need to have planning and prioritizing. You need to have a working memory. But a lot of our skills were lacking in these different executive functioning skills. And our blended learning classrooms were a little chaotic. They were a little crazy. So what you'll do is once you do the pre-assessment with your students, or once you kind of do your own assessment, you can go down to the executive functioning skills. And again, there's resources to help you help that student with this skill deficit. So again, here's like the goal directed. Maybe you do a goal getter where you have students kind of look at their data and they can kind of see how many lessons they've passed. They can see that goal and they get some type of reward once they meet it. This next one is the pre-assessment. So I kind of talked a little bit about that in the big resource bank, but this is what it looks like. So once you take the assessment, you'll get a nice autocrat response that looks like this. Same with your students. And then you can kind of see here, my lowest area is flexibility, where my highest strength is, it looks like organization, time management, task initiation, emotional control. But I really need to work on these response inhibitions and flexibility. So then I can really pull this data to know, okay, this is where I need to help my students when it comes to those executive functioning skills. And then for home, we started to make a resource on executive functioning for home because we also thought this could help parents. And we had a lot of parents asking for support. And they weren't really asking for executive functioning. They were just kind of asking for different resources. And what it came to was executive functioning. The vocabulary might have just been a little different. So right here, what they did is they just got 3 in a row. So if they made a checklist for something at home, maybe they gamified something, or maybe they chunked information. That was kind of their goal, was to get 3 of these in a row to work on these different skills at home. Again, it goes over every single piece of executive functioning for the parents. And so again, we would look at that pre-assessment data, and then we would say, okay, your child needs to work on slide 7, planning and prioritizing. Here are some things that you can do at home with your student. And a lot of times it is games. You can play games with your students or your at home, and they can learn a lot of executive functioning skills just by playing a game. And then another thing was organization. So organization is a huge executive functioning skills, which a lot of our students, even some of our teachers, lack in. And so we did an OK Google Organize My Life, me and my friend Abid. And then the students had to do a tic-tac-toe board and provide evidence that they did the tips that were provided in the video. So students would watch the video, and then they would complete one of these activities, and then they would paste a screenshot of their evidence to get some type of reward for organizing their Google digital life. Because I think sometimes we just say, oh, just make a document, and then they don't name it, or they don't do this. And so giving them time to organize, to learn how to use emojis, to learn to color code in Google Drive, to learn how to create an email signature or reorder their Google Classroom so they're in the order that they travel to their classes, can really help students. And so we wanted to teach them those different skills to be successful. All right, so now we're going to go into relationship building. So when it comes to relationship building, this is a forced choice survey. So with the forced choice survey, what students do is they take this assessment. It's about 40 questions. And everything in here is down here on the YouTube description. And you'll make a copy of this Google Sheet. So once you get access to that Google Sheet, you'll make a copy of this. And how this works with your students is you will create a Google form. And the Google form looks like, let's see here. In this video, we're going to walk through how to... there we go. So this is the Google form, and it's just 2 questions. Which would you rather pick? A teacher writes 100 on your paper, or be the first to finish your work? Would you rather have a bag of chips, or have a classmate ask you to be on their team? So students go throughout this assessment, and what they do is they will choose one of the choices. And after they choose a choice, they are going to get a result that looks like this. Again, it's created with Autocrat, and the students can quickly see what rewards them, okay, which was shocking to me, because adult approval was high in a lot of my students' results, where I thought it was going to be those consumable rewards. They're always asking for candy. What do I win if I win the game? What do I get if I do this? It actually was adult approval. They wanted me to say, good job. They want their parents to say, they want their coach to say. Some of them, it was peer approval. They need other people in their classroom to give them praise. Sometimes it's competitive approval, where they might play a game and they need that competitiveness to be really excited and to kind of have that motivation. So using this forced choice survey allowed me to know what motivated my students. And then for those students that needed those consumable rewards, they could pick from a treasure box. The students that needed those adult approval, I might have more teacher check-ins with them and like look over their work and have a conference with them about the different feedback I was providing to them. So that was the forced choice survey, and it really started to change my classroom and how I responded to my students, because I honestly thought that a lot of them were wanting consumables, and that wasn't the case. A lot of them actually wanted the adult approval, which I was kind of shocked because I thought they would want the consumable rewards, but really they just wanted me or their parents to say, hey, you're doing a good job. And then we used a lot of on a scale. So with on a scale, these are really fun activities for your students. And as you can kind of see here, it's 1 through 9. So you just kind of look at this scale and you just say, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? And based on that, you pick a number. A lot of my teachers will add these to a Google form, and then the students will pick which number and how they're feeling. And then they will respond on that Google form. Some teachers even add like a spot on the bottom that says, do you need a teacher's check? And if they need a teacher's check, then they can check in with that student at a later time. So again, just kind of seeing right here, feel free to pick one of these numbers. I feel like I am feeling a number 9 today. But it's just, again, it's a fun way to connect with your students. And then you can have a conversation with them. Okay, why are you feeling this way? Let's have a conversation. Do you need a teacher check-in? What is going on? You're a number 3. What time did you go to bed? Maybe you're a number 8 and you're being really silly. So you might need a little bit more breaks throughout my class period today. But it allowed me to just quickly check in with my students and see how they were doing. And then moving motivators. So this is another activity that you can kind of use with your students. And there's different motivating cards. So leadership, decision maker, relationship, freedom, goal, honor, mastery, order, acceptance, curiosity. And what happens if students put these from most important to least important? So freedom might be a little bit less important to me, where some students, it might be really, really important to them. And so students just kind of put these in order, and it just kind of allows you to know what motivates your students. And then from there, you can kind of say, oh, leadership, I need to give them some leadership rewards or responsibilities, where if somebody else leadership is last, they might not enjoy being the leader in your class. They might not like being the one that's in charge with their group. So then you can kind of see what does motivate your students quick with these little fun little cards. And now we're on to transitions. So transitions were very difficult for a lot of our students coming back from hybrid / the virtual year. And what we realized is we needed to add agendas. So with agendas, our teachers usually have these up on the board when the students first walk in, and they can quickly see what they need to do for the day, what the objective is. Maybe it's a national day where you want to celebrate some fun facts. Maybe you have some reminders. And so students will come in and they get to see this agenda quickly on the board to see what is going on for the day. This just, again, it helps students kind of know what are we doing today and what is the focus. Also, I've heard a lot of teachers that were just saying this verbally, where students really needed to see it as well. So we've added that kind of into our schedule just to help students kind of see what they need to work on, what we're focusing on for the day, and any reminders. And then there was the WONDERWALL. So this WONDERWALL was a really helpful activity just to help students, again, focus in. I did this activity with, or it started with a book trailer. So students finished reading Touching Spirit Bear, and their goal was to create a book trailer. So we created, what are we learning? And we would add the text. Why are we learning it? And then when do you know you have learned it? So again, those 3 questions John Hattie really suggests that we incorporate into our learning to help students have a clear focus for what they're doing, why they're doing it, and when do they know that they have learned it. And so once
Stephanie.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe that you wanted everybody to have the presenter links, and I've created a way for them to have that without emailing them because I don't have my computer. It's sitting here doing video conferencing with you. If everybody goes to tinyurl.com/2022 create links. Again, it's tinyurl.com/2022 create links, all one word, all lowercase, no spaces. That will give them access to any links that you've put into that document, Stephanie. I just wanted to give you a heads up, and I apologize for interrupting.
No, you're good. Okay, perfect. Okay, so with the Wonderwall, what we kind of did is we had the focus of what, why, and when will you know that you've learned it. And then we broke down the task into a week. So on Monday, you're going to do this piece of that book project. On Tuesday, you're going to do this piece. On Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday is when it's due. And so again, it allowed the students to break down and learn some time management skills on how they're going to break these tasks down into multiple different days and how they're going to accomplish that resource and how they're going to create that book trailer. So for example, on Monday, the students did some storyboarding. There was no technology. They just had out a piece of paper and they storyboarded what they were going to create for their book trailer. On Tuesday, they learned how to use WeVideo and they started to edit. So it was a quick mini lesson and then they started to edit and create their book trailers. On Wednesday, they edited, and then on Thursday, they finished up their projects, and on Friday, they had a peer review for their project. So again, we were able to take this big project and break it down into multiple different days, what made it a lot easier for our students to kind of see. And then reset roadmaps. So after transitions, students would come back. So after Christmas break, I don't know if any teacher feels the same way. Students would come back and it was really, really stressful. Students would come back and it was just overwhelming for some of our teachers. And so what happened is we would have them focus on what motivates you. That's where we would do one of those surveys that we talked about earlier with either that motivation or we'd use the forced choice survey. And then what the students would do is they would list all the different procedures that are already working. Then they would kind of talk about what's not working as a class. They would create a new mission statement, new focus for the new year, because typically this happens in January. They would play a game. They would match any reinforcers to the rules, and then they would get organized. So just having this little roadmap allowed students to kind of refocus, restart this new year after Christmas break, that extended break, and refocus on what the expectations were and what they needed to do in order to be successful. And then tidy up transitions. This is a fun activity for students. A lot of times our students might be taking time to get to the next activity. So some of my teachers wanted to do station rotation. So station rotation, students would travel between the different activities. One activity, they might be on the computer at the digital content station. Another activity, they might be at the independent where they're doing some type of practice activity on what they just learned individually. Another station, the students are maybe doing a project. So like with the 4 C's, they're collaborating, they're communicating, they're working together on different activities to create some type of product. And then the other one is teacher station. Well, the students were taking about 5 minutes the first day to get to that station. These activities should just take 1 minute. So what we had to do is we timed them. The next day, the students, it might have taken them 3 minutes. The next day, it took them maybe 4 minutes. And then here they had maybe 2 minutes. And then finally, we got down to that 1 minute. So just timing and using a timer that was counting up to see how long it would take students to get to the next station, allowed those stations or the transition to cut down and allowed the teacher to have more instructional time in their classroom. So again, we were at 5 minutes, then it went down to 3 minutes, back up a little bit to 4 minutes, then 2, and then 1. So the students got to quickly see how they were doing with those different times, and they could then make improvements. And now we're at reflection. So with reflection, this is another hub with kind of some other ideas for just some reflections. So one of my favorite ones is the refocus form. So with the refocus form, this is for students who are quickly off task. Maybe they're talking while they're not supposed to. Maybe they're getting out of their chair when they're not supposed to. Maybe they're messing around with others, or maybe they're just off task. So whenever you catch a student that is off task, what we can do is we can have them fill out this refocus form. The refocus form allows us to kind of keep data and to check for patterns over time and to know when we need to contact parents. And so right here, you can see I was asked to refocus because instead I could have, in the future I will. And so right here is some sentence starters or some circling that your students can do for those students that need that accommodation to kind of, I don't know what to write. So maybe it was, I was talking off task. I asked for a break if I need one. That's what I'm going to do next time. Maybe in the future, I'm going to wait to talk to my friends instead of during the lesson or activity. So students are really reflecting on their behavior when it happens. And then I can collect these, and after maybe 3 or 4, I can start to contact the parents and have a discussion about their child and this refocus and what we've done to kind of help. But it's really nice to kind of keep track of these students, because in a blended learning classroom, oftentimes you're trying to work with different students one-on-one or small group. And so when a student is off task, I can just say, hey, I need you to go to the floater desk over on that side and fill out the refocus form. And then in 5 minutes, we're going to have a conversation. So then it allowed me some time to finish up that work with that small group of students, and then pull those other students in to really refocus on their behavior. Here's some other ones that were also in here that we've kind of used, like a think sheet. So how are you feeling? What are you thinking? Did your choice affect others? How do you feel now? And then what can I do next time that would be a better choice? I can also do this with my students sitting in front of me. I can ask them these questions really quickly, and we can have a conversation. Or I can print these out or have them in a Google form, or I can have my students complete these activities using Flipgrid. So many different options, and it doesn't have to just be writing if that's how your students, maybe some of them struggle with writing. And then we also have like a behavior reflection. So what was my behavior? What were the reasons for my behavior? How did my behavior reflect others? What is my plan to fix my behavior? Do I need to apologize to anyone? And what should your consequence be for this behavior? So just some helpful questions to get you thinking about some of just reflections when it comes to getting to the core of an issue. Maybe it's lying. Maybe you have some students that are lying and they need an honesty reflection about why they're lying. Maybe they need a grade check. Okay, so just kind of getting students to reflect and think about, okay, why did I do this? And it gives you some evidence to start to track how many times it's happening and when you need to call parents, and you have that evidence to do so. This next one is called Work and Reset. And what happens is students have a timer and they work for the amount of time on the timer. I would suggest 20 to 30 minutes goes on that timer. And once you hit play, the time starts. And students have 2 behavior goals. They're 1, going to raise their hand to speak, or 2, stay in their space. And they get 1 warning. So what happens is students will raise their hand to speak, or they're going to stay in their space. And if they do those 2 things in the time that is given, they get to pick one of these choices on the outside of the board. So again, the timer goes. I might give a couple students a warning. If they get another warning, I write their name down. And then after the time, the students have 5 minutes of a break. So they get to reset. And the students that got the warning, which happened to me, I was in a classroom and I had 2 students that were not able to follow the 2 behavior rules. They did not raise their hand to speak. And so those students got a warning and then they did it again. And so then they got to spend their 5 minutes with me. And so with those 5 minutes, what happened is we kind of focused on these questions. What was a challenge during the work time? What went well during the work time? What would you change and how can I help? And then what can you try next time to meet your goal? So again, they had to sit with me for 5 minutes while all the other students were doing tech times, stretching or moving, drawing. Maybe they were reading a book, origami. Maybe they were watching YouTube. Maybe they were doing a story. And so those 2 students had to sit with me and reflect. Those 2 students, we did it again, didn't need to sit with me for those 5 minutes. So again, having that time for the students to do it and then we could do it again, I was able to get a lot more instructional time out of those 20 to 30 minutes with that timer. And I know it's 5 minutes out of your class period, but my students, when I did this activity, were more focused than ever. So I was willing to give up those 5 minutes. And another roadblock that kind of occurred was students getting back to their seat. So because we had some issues with students getting back to their seat, they had them try to beat the timer. So something similar to the transition tidy up, I set a timer and I said, you have 1 minute to get back to your seat, work on your roadmap and focus on 2 of the goals. And so again, I started the timer, they had to get back to their seat and then they were good to get going. Exit tickets. Exit tickets are a great way to kind of wrap up your class and focus on reflections. So this resource right here has a bunch of different exit ticket ideas that you're able to use with your students. I would not use this full choice board with your students. This is overwhelming. You're going to have a lot of students just sit there and not do these activities. This is more of a choice board for you to go to that slide to see what is required. So I would create a choice board with 3 choices instead of 9, or I would just say, okay, today, everybody, we're doing this activity. So some of these activities that are embedded into these exit tickets is students might record a Flipgrid video of what they're learning. Students might use AutoDraw. And if you haven't ever used AutoDraw, this is a really cool resource where your students can use this little pen tool. And let me go ahead and get a new sheet. And they can draw out what they're learning. So maybe they learned about, I'm like a really bad drawer, but you can see here, it auto fixed my drawing that I was really bad at. So this is just a great way for students to quickly sketch note what they learned about in class. And then they can pick one of these things at the top. Oh, it's a nose. And they're able to then move these around. And then they can grab the text box and they can type about what they're learning and quickly recap about what they learned for the day. So again, that just reflection piece, and it's just a fun way for students. They can resize, they can change the color, they can delete it, and then they can also add any drawing. They can also free draw with their own styling pen. So that's a fun one for students where they can draw everything that comes to mind about whatever topic you're teaching. Another idea is using Twitter. So students can just kind of tweet a real quick post. They can use 280 characters in their post. So just a quick summary about what they learned. And so students will quickly type their post, they'll change their avatar, and then they can send you their tweet of quick summary of what they learned. Capture. So then students can also use this template to add a photo of something that they might filter, compose, capture from the lesson, and then they can explain how it's relevant to what you were teaching about. They can also decide if it's going to go on like a social media or a news, like who is the audience and who are they trying to appeal in their audience as well. So just a great way to recapture some learning that's happening. They might use an emoji exit ticket. So right here is the emoji exit ticket. Students add an emoji that represents their learning, and then 3 sentences that talks about why they picked that emoji, maybe why they succeeded or why they struggled in class. So again, they're going to add emoji here, and then they use 3 reasonings to explain why they picked that emoji. They might send a quick email where they put in the message and they have some sentence starters to help them. Hello, I'm writing because I've already tried blank. What steps have you already tried to solve the issue? I would like support by, and students can explain their question or what's still fuzzy or what they don't understand about the different content. Maybe they create some type of poem where they use paper and markers. Maybe they create a song. They think about a song that relates to your content, and students will then talk about the reasons they picked that song and then add any lyrics. They can also use this comment tool to comment between other people's songs if you wanted to. And then right here, they can fill out this opinion where students might do like I dislike or I like the concept or the instruction that they learn, and then they can provide reasons and evidence for why or why not. So those again are just some exit ticket ideas, and here are just some more ideas that you can kind of use as well. So again, that video, maybe they write a summary, the pictures, maybe they find another idea, a digital presentation, some kind of art, maybe they create their own quiz. Maybe they create instructions that a classmate could follow. Maybe they interview somebody. Maybe they create like a graphic organizer that organizes their thoughts of what they learned today. And so now is kind of a time if you have any questions or want to explore any more. I wanted to leave time for that, so feel free to come off mute. Also, right here is the link to the slides as well, and I will add the recording to the Google Doc once it processes.
Sorry, here we are.
You're good.
Go ahead.
How do we join to get the resources that are required?
Oh, the presenter links?
No, the
No.
group that she was
In
talking
here,
about.
she has some links, but she said you had to join the Google.
Right here.
Get to some of them.
So this bit.ly.
Okay.
It's not working.
It didn't work.
Yeah, if you could leave that up for just a second. bit.ly/ and is it case sensitive?
Yeah.
Okay,
So capital G.
bit.ly/ capital G, lowercase OLD, capital HELLO. Does that work for anybody?
I think it's locked here.
It's probably blocked on public, just have.
Oh, okay, so the Google Groups may be blocked on the public Wi-Fi.
What I'm going to do. Oh, you think it's a Google group, not the bit.ly?
Yeah, the tech director for the district is here.
URL one, bit.ly.
Okay. Let me edit.
Okay.
If they save that, they'll be able to access.
Can you, yeah, so just save it and see if you can access it later. And
In the speaker notes, I'm going to put the link, like the actual link. Let's see if that works.
Yeah, if you go off of Wi-Fi, it works.
so like on your cell plane.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It has a button there to join the group.
Yeah, so they're saying that when you jump off of the Wi-Fi, it's working.
So I don't know if this link will work. This is like the link to get there. That's not the shortener. So it doesn't work. Okay.
Still not working on the Wi-Fi, so Google Groups may be blocked on the public Wi-Fi.
Okay. Feel free to request access too.
Who's having issues?
Her,
assessment choice board at the end is requesting access. It's not shared.
Okay.
Is it this one?
Did you hear that, Stephanie?
Is it this one?
Yes,
See if I can change it.
that way she doesn't get hit up with a bunch of,
There you go.
perfect, thank you.
Any other questions or I know that was like a lot of resources. Again, I'm sorry I'm an overshare. But feel free if you want to see something again. We have about 14 minutes. So happy to re-explain or re-show something or answer any questions.
Any questions for Stephanie? I think we're good, Stephanie.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate it. And let's do it again next year.
Yeah, sounds good. Hopefully in person.
It sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Nice meeting you.
It's nice meeting you.
Bye-bye.